Hi folks, thanks for joining me for this week's stillwater tutorial. This pattern may look a bit familiar. I've done it before. It's called the Sumo shrimp, but the quality in the last video wasn't so good and I've been asked by a few people to redo it, so I'm going to do it for you today. Let's get into it. So in the vise is a Hanak H310 barbless hook. This one's at size 10, it's in black nickel and it's a heavy wire hook. The thread I'm going to be using for this fly is a UTC 140 denier, and as you can see it's a tan thread. So I'm just going to get a few wraps on at the head here, and I'm going to bring my thread back approximately half an inch before just taking a few wraps to bring it about 1/4 of an inch from the eye of the hook. I'll just remove my waste. Now I'm going to create the eyes using some monofilament nylon line. It's quite thick, as you can see, and I've already taken a small amount of that off, and I've got approximately 3/4 of an inch. And what you need to do this is some needle nose tweezers are the best, because then you can decide what gap you would like. Then basically place it in your tweezers. So I've got about just over 1/8 of an inch gap, and while you've got it pinned down, you can then burn the ends, and this creates a nice big black eye, just like the natural shrimp. And same with the other side. And what you need to do is give it a little hot second just to cool down. If you try and pick it up too soon, you end up well, one, you burn your hand, and two, you ruin the look of your eyes. So you just got to bear with it for a couple of seconds. And once that's done, you then have your eyes ready made. So the best way of attaching them is to put them on in line, get a couple of wraps over, and then you can adjust them with your finger. Now unfortunately I'm going to have to do this with my finger, just holding it into place, but as I move it away, you'll see that I am just crisscrossing the eyes now to hold them into place. Once you're happy that you've got enough thread wraps to hold them in, bring your thread right back, and what I always do at this point is, just to add a little bit of strength to that, I'm going to just give it a little wash with super glue, and then I'm going to adjust my hook in the vise, because everything's going to happen down this bottom end now. So then I can bring my thread, continue to bring my thread should I say, down the shank of the hook and towards the bend, and that's going to do me nicely. So for the tail of this fly, I'm going to use some Partridge. Now I've selected a feather from the top of the Partridge because they're not much use for anything else, they're too big. So I've got it here, as you can see. I've removed the waste already, and I'm going to take a clump of feathers and I'm going to put that to the side, because I will need the other side for the throat hackle. And I have managed to make a bit of a mess of that. I want them to be kind of in line. Doesn't need to be exact, it's quite a rough looking fly as you've seen. So I'm going to line that up, and it's just over half an inch for the tail. And then once you've got it in secured, just remove enough as that it's going to finish before the eye. You want to keep the rest because that will help with the bulk of the body, and you want the body to bulk out. probably build a little bit of taper in with thread wraps nearer the top. Just bear with me. And as I'm coming back down now, I'm going to add my rib, and what I'm going to use for my rib is this stuff. It's called Sparton. It was from Steve Parton when he was around, and he made this stuff, and I got it at a fly fair, I believe, some years ago. I bought about 3 or 4 rolls of it because I thought, oh, this is great. It's much heavier than most of the stuff, but light enough to still use as a ribbon. So I've cut a little bit of that off. Now I know it's probably not readily available now, but what you can use is some buzzer wrap from Vineyards. But what I would say with the buzzer wrap is you will have to use some super glue because it's a lot more delicate than this. For the body part of the fly, I'm going to be using some of the Mad Rabbit Dubbing Plus from Troutline. And this might be the last fly I get out of this actually. It's been a good pack of dubbing, that. But basically I want to wrap it on fairly tight. Doesn't need to be compressed right down, but it wants to be a little bit tight. And the Mad Rabbit Plus, what you get is little flecks of glister in it. And if you look at the shrimp in the water, actually, they do have quite a bit of shine to them. So this dubbing's just ideal for the body. And I'm going to run that all the way up, and that's worked out perfectly for me actually. So as you can see, I'm about 1/8 of an inch back from my eye, and I haven't had to pick any dubbing off or add any dubbing, which is always good. Next then, I'm going to bring my rib up, and what I want is about 4 turns of this rib on the body, and it's just a clear film, so it's not adding any colour, it's just giving it that little bit of shine, which is what I'm after for this pattern. Bring it over to the gap that you've got between your eye and your dubbing, then I can lock that in with a couple of turns. Once I'm happy that's not going anywhere, I can remove the excess. Okay, so far so good. Next then, I'm going to invert my vise. Once the vise is inverted, I'm going to use the other part of my partridge feather that I've got here as the throat hackle. So I'm going to bring that in. It's going to go all the way to the back of the bend of the hook. Just get one turn in, and then just play about with it until you're happy that it's sitting in the right spot. And I'm fairly content with that, so I'm going to come in and remove my excess. And I've took a little bit of the throat hackle there as well. Okay, fairly happy though, so I'm going to turn my vise back the next way. Next I'm going to add my thorax cover, and all I'm using for that is some pheasant tail. It's nicely dark and marked. So I'm going to take between 5 and 6 plumes, I'm talking out my backside, strands of feather from the stalk, and I don't really want the tips here, so I can just take them off. And what I want to do is bring it over the front of the eyes like so, and then I can capture that in. Then these bits at the front, I can just lock it into place. And I want to remove them little stems. That one's not wanting to play. Just encourage it up like so. Now while I've been doing that, thankfully, my thread has been unwinding, and for the thorax area I'm going to be using some of the Trout Stalkers dubbing, and this one's a custom blend that Andrew Ellis has done for me. It's Lindsay's Killer Shrimp. I've already got some in my clip ready to go, so it just remains for me to split the thread, and the UTC is great for this. It just splits, no bother at all. You get a lovely big dubbing loop that opens out effortlessly. Some of the other ones you've got to do quite a bit of work to get to split like that does. So I've caught that in. I'm going to just wind my thread up and then spin it up. I mean, this pattern was originally tied with Gratham in mind, but I think anywhere where you've got shrimp it'll do a turn for you. So I've wound up my brush now, and I'm just going to thin it out slightly with my thumb and forefinger, just removing some of the excess hair. And then what I'm going to do is a couple of turns in behind the eye, and I'm going to come over in a figure of 8 motion with the eyes, and then into the front. So that's looking pretty good. Next, I'm going to keep that spun up. I want it nice and tight now, and then I'm going to bring my thorax cover over the top and catch it in. And once I've got that in place, I can then come in with my snips, remove the excess, and then I can concentrate on building a nice thick head. Once you're happy, whip finish tool, or a half hitch if you prefer. And then come in with your scissors and trim that off. Next then, just to finish it, the pheasant tail is obviously quite delicate material, so what we want to do is protect that, and I'm going to protect it with some UV resin. You can give it a coat of varnish, it will do the same job. And then I'm just going to get some resin onto the head of my thread. Sorry, onto the head of the fly, not the head of the thread. Just going to make sure that's got a nice wee soaking of resin on the thorax cover. Then before I blast it with a torch, I'm just going to run a little bit of wire through the eye, just to make sure that I'm not fiddling about on the boat when I'm trying to tie the fly on. Now it may look a bit scruffy, but once it's wet, this fly looks exactly like a shrimp. It's very realistic pattern. And there we go. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you got something out of that, and I hope it was a lot clearer than the first version of this video that I did. If you like what I'm doing, please remember to subscribe to the channel. It's very much appreciated. I'll see you all next time.